This is a marble gate. For it to function, we need to transport the marbles to it. So welcome to this episode of Restoring the Marble Machine X.
This is now done. The whole divider now has all the pipes coming out from it. So as when we got the machine, we had the bass tubes, hi-hat, snare, and kick. And then from there on, it was just all empty all the way to there. So those are the plates that interface with what's going to be the pressure regulators. The pressure regulators, they go here. We're going to do a little squiggle, but not as significant as before. And then the pipes going from those to the droppers. Which we're going to try to keep as short as possible and as straight as possible because pipe bending is annoying. So we're going to try to limit that as much as possible.
As part of fixing the machine, we also need to replace the pressure regulators used to come down from the marble divider into the instruments and the gates. These ones take a little too long for the marbles to travel down, and sometimes marbles get stuck, clog, or well, in any other way, simply don't work. You can see that if it was in a marble, it does take a nice path, but what we really want is something way shorter, so the marble simply goes, well, nearly directly through. These ones have also been modified a little. The old one used to have at the bottom and at the top using a replaceable part. Right now we actually made integrated places where the pipe can go, so we simply can clamp this very sturdily in place and the pipe will immediately stay fixed in that. We will need to make about 10 and something more, and we also got shorter ones and longer ones depending on where in the machine these get placed. The shorter ones simply take off a section here so that we have more space for bending pipes around the marble machine frame, or for example when the hi-hat is way up high, we can simply go directly to it instead of having to curve back. What it takes is pre-drilling, sometimes drilling through them, chamfering, and then inserting 12 screws and getting those all in place. We've got a closed piece, and now we still need to do some finishing work like drilling holes into this threaded insert goes into here, and then we can clamp this thing onto the machine. Lucas has also been teaching some others how to operate the machine, so now Doro can take this piece and make 14 of them or something.
This was a marathon, just endless pipe bending. There's in total 11 channels of vibraphone, which means 2 pipes per channel, and 22 pipes to bend total for the vibraphone alone. So using Martin's technique, which was silicone rod and the little vat of soapy water, just getting the silicone tube through, pipe through, and heating it up and then bending it. It takes a while to get used to. There's a thing about it, like heating up the outside of the turn to get the turn clean. As you can see, some of the bends are not perfect. There's a lot of bubbling that happened, but the struggle was mostly just fitting all of them in that space. In CAD, that's not done yet, so we don't know what it's supposed to look like in CAD. In real life, like there were some issues with fitting it out of the side of the machine for those. The last 2 droppers, for example, have their pipes fitting through the frame here and out the back. There were a few issues, of course. I'd say the efficiency was not great because 1 out of 3 pipes I bent was faulty. Either broke or bubbled up too much, because bending it one way means it's very hard to bend it the other way without it failing.
To assemble the rest of the marble gates, after these had been put on, we needed to have a connection between the triggers and the dropper arms. The dropper arms, they had been assembled by Martin a long time ago, but the links in between, these had to be made by us. For that, we had to make the decision whether we would try to go with straight links or whether we might end up needing to bend some in complicated shapes. Thankfully, we got away with straight ones. We had to order stock that we then could cut to size to weld these dropper arms on. As these pieces become steeper, the angles for the contact points for the welding also change and had to accordingly be grinded down. And that was a lot of work that Jaybird put into figuring out the precise position.
Once we got pieces like these cut down to size, cut at the right angle, there is of course the challenge of positioning this just the same way we measured them, and it's all floating in air. So what we did was to abuse this poor little indicator arm, stick it wherever it would stick, position the arm a little bit, get some metal onto there. And then of course the trick was like, getting it just right, clamp it, and then start brazing in this case. We didn't want to really weld it, and this is not going to win any kind of beauty competition. But the trick is that there are plastics everywhere. There's silicone tubing which can still, well, burn up. So we simply heated it up with the TIG welding torch and then inserted brazing filling rod until everything just sticks together in the point we wanted. We had to shim the bottom dropper arms, then clamp them into place. Once all pieces align more or less, then we could complete it. And when we were feeling like, okay, we think we got it tack welded, then we could actually raise some of these arms to be able to reach the back. You can only see how everything fits together when the dropper arm is in its closed position. For welding, you really need it in its open position, and it gets tricky. Especially if you heat the weld hot enough, the entire thing will come apart. But that said, apart from a few pieces which are now off at the moment, everything seems to be holding and can now trigger the gates to drop marbles.
This is the pipe-in-pipe muting system. As you might see, there's a bunch of small elastics there. These need to stay loaded, otherwise what happens is it might just stay blocked up and not be able to register a new note or not even reload something at the dropper. Martin's idea was the kinetic fingers, which the main intention was also to be able to see what notes are being played from far away. Since that's not going to be a thing anymore because the machine is not going to play on stage, we decided to just forego the kinetic fingers entirely and go for elastics. They serve the exact same purpose, which is bring those muting rings back down without necessarily being too visible, keeping the metal aspect. We wouldn't be able to see the pipes, the droppers, or this mechanical assembly as well. But yeah, that's our replacement for the kinetic fingers, elastics.
Now that we've done all these droppers, we're going to go to this one, the cymbal dropper.
So for the cymbal, that has a weird dropper because it's supposed to just interface a regular dropper with pipes because this dropper cannot directly aim at the cymbal. It's all the way in the bottom of the machine. This is the design we came up with, something that takes the output from the marbles, gets them through pipes, all the way down to this, and that has a separate trigger that swings out and lets the marble go through. And the only way we found to link that easily would have been a Bowden cable, but the best other solution is just the equivalent with basically a pulley sliding system and a cordelette that just gets triggered by the trigger itself up top. So you have a marble down there and then it rings.
Just like the original marble machine, The marble machine X has a programming wheel in the back which needs pins for things to happen. Since there wasn't a musical program included, we still need to figure out how to program it for it to be heard.
This marks the completion of the marble loops. We are getting really close to playing it on the upcoming Wintergatan Community Meetup, which for you will be a couple of seconds away, but for us it's upcoming real soon. If you can't get enough and want to see more behind-the-scenes content, feel free to follow our YouTube membership down below, and see you there.
Ja, genau.